Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you again so much for joining me here. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Happy Monday to you. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. We actually did pretty well this weekend, all things considered. It's been a good weekend. While we didn't really trade Solana as a swing trade, we did find some nice opportunities there with Cardano, good 21%, and SUI caught that pump at about 65.5%. So congrats to our community for that. That kind of offsets that Bitcoin long stop loss we triggered over the weekend, or no, I think it was Friday. And, that just kind of happens. I want to kind of normalize it because you got to recognize that taking losses is part of the game too. But either way, we took 2 wins and 1 loss. Not too bad, all things considered there. But the whole point of me bringing that up is that we see a decent amount of volume coming into the market this weekend, right? Bitcoin dominance, albeit still fairly high, did take a hit over the weekend, and most altcoins were able to at the very least recover. But kind of implying that the bottom is tentatively in for altcoins. I mean, Bitcoin dominance can only go so high, right? So the truth is, right now, I think we're in a situation where Solana should take off, and the main reason why I feel that way is because we keep retesting this golden pocket range here. 1, 2, 3. 3 monstrous attempts that have yet to succeed. However, Bitcoin is also struggling at that 55 to 56K range, which is actually pretty good considering it was at 52.5 on Friday morning, right? So again, a lot of interesting stuff here, but the key takeaway here is that we're going to double check a few important factors and make sure we know what's going on the back end, because a lot of times liquidation can be very helpful. If you're kind of new to the channel, obviously hit the like button, of course, but more importantly, make sure that you understand that liquidation is something that's super relevant in the market. And in other words, when you see the price action starting to get closer to liquidation ranges, there's more propensity for the price to go in that direction to finish that sweep, because whales, well, they hunt for liquidation mainly because it provides them with opportunities to be able to move the price in whichever direction they see fit, right? There's just a lot of opportunity there for them. Having said that, there's a decent amount of opportunity here between 124 and 126. This isn't a tremendous amount. There's like maybe 2 or 3 billion, which is weird to downplay that. We've seen larger concentrations before, but if you kind of zoom into the 30-day on the right-hand side here, you can see there's about 3 to 4 billion between 124 and 126. So just know there's a lot of longs right now that could get liquidated. My speculation is that Bitcoin will pull back a little bit to fill its CME gap that formed over the weekend. So if you're not familiar with that, we have a CME gap here, and we can kind of see that is still present between 54,000 and 54.5. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the prices do one of these and then come back up. Generally speaking, that's what we're looking at there. Okay, so just a heads up, it needs to be filled. And if that does get filled, then we'll probably see Solana pull back to sweep that lower level liquidation at 124 to 126, and then of course we see the price recover from there. Again, those are just probabilities, right? It's a distinct probability, not necessarily, but it's still something we got to recognize that's very present on the scenarios here. So let's take a look at the weekly and work our way down. I'd like to touch on weeklies on Mondays, just so we can kind of get perspective on what's going on. This is a very similar SMA chart to Bitcoin. In other words, if you look at Bitcoin, you can see that there is, again, it's kind of hard to see on this chart here, but there's a 50-day SMA kind of hanging out below the price action. Tentative support at 54,000. Okay, we did see over the weekend 54K hold like a champ, but again, that's low volume, right? The key takeaway here I want you to recognize and walk away with is that we're still above that support. That reinforces that support at 121, 122. We break below that, I think we're going to be in a much different scenario, because that's a range that we don't have a tremendous amount of volume in yet. We need to recognize that we're going to be, it's just going to be different if we break below that. It doesn't mean the world's going to come to an end. It probably implies that Bitcoin's moving towards the 40,000 range, right? And obviously that's going to be a different conversation. Either way, the point of this is that we're above that level, and that's a good thing. Same thing here with RSI. Bitcoin is doing something similar here, where it kind of wavers above and below 50 on the RSI, but the key takeaway is we've closed below 50, so that does generally imply a bearish type of scenario here, where the price action is more likely to go down than up in the overall sense. We're also fairly low on our TSI, which is our trend strength indicator, just kind of a good indication of where we're at there. But the truth is, if you compare that with other coins, Solana is still doing fairly well in its range. Okay. But again, it didn't break out or do much at all this weekend, which is kind of unlike it, where other coins such as Cardano, SUI, these coins that we essentially identified some really nice patterns on, did a breakout, right? But right now, though, Solana's kind of on the struggle bus, and it's not quite performing as well as other coins at this exact moment. Again, that can change, but that's just kind of the idea. Okay. Let's go ahead and summarize here the daily. We're under 50 on the RSI, stochastic swinging up. TSI is starting to get a little bit of strength, but nothing crazy yet, right? So we want to see the MACD converge and the TSI start to move towards zero. When that happens, then we're generally see positive signs or good shifts in momentum. Okay. We also want to be back over moving averages here, but we're a long ways away from that. So the truth is the daily time frame looks pretty terrible. Keep in mind most daily time frames look bad right now. Minus Bitcoin. Actually, Bitcoin has some solid scenarios here. It's over the 20-day SMA and essentially trying to break free from its descending trend. If that happens, I think Solana will continue to do well because again, we're testing this 130 range. It's a pretty solid resistance for us. You can see our local point of control is right there at 130. So again, a solid closure above 130 today would make sense, pending Bitcoin doesn't drop below 54,000. Okay, there's a caveat that comes in there. We have to recognize that Bitcoin could sweep that 54K range, and if it does and holds, we're good. If it doesn't, different conversation, right? So we've been invalidated on a long position if that happens. 4-hour time frame, we look here, our trend strength indicator is pretty decent. We can also recognize that we're at 50 on the RSI. This is not like a great place to be. I don't like to see the price wavering there. It kind of shows that we're due for a breakout and that there's compression. And generally that's a positive sign, especially if you see more bullish confirming factors. It's more likely to break to the upside. Once more, testing this 0.618 fib level multiple times over, strong chance we're going to break it if we continue to maintain this range. But again, we're starting to see that compression with the SMAs too. Never a great sign when we look at the hourly. That kind of confirms it, where we're still below the cloud. And truth is, when you become range bound, which we are effectively here, you can kind of see this pretty definitive range. It's just one of those things where the longer you stay in a range, the more likely it is to break out. Okay, so I'll go ahead and post this on our playout chart on our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord here, so you can kind of see that a little more specifically. I'll clean it up, of course. This is just kind of throwing it together for the sake of the conversation here. But the whole point of getting at here is when you break free from a range in either direction, that will tell us which direction we're trending, most likely. Again, if Bitcoin cannot sustain its current ascending type of trend, which is very tentative for the moment, then I think we're going to see Solana pull back. Yeah, but pending Bitcoin doesn't do anything obnoxious, maintains 54 to 55K range, I think Solana is due to continue higher based on how it is progressing here. But once more, range-bound activity is exactly that. Until it breaks, there's no reason to presume it's going to go elsewhere. Let's quickly look here, of course, at the curious about today's TPO. So what we can see here is there's most amount of resistance about 129, and the same thing yesterday at about 128.70. Okay, so we're below both of those, basically telling us the last 48 hours the bulls have been unsuccessful and the bears are holding the price action in place. Okay, so again, a lot of conflicting information. When you start to compress, you start to stay in a range. I don't personally like to trade range-bound activity, so I personally just like to wait for those breakouts. I'm not much of a breakout trader, but in a situation like this, you want to wait for a breakout because we're at this weird precipice in the overall market with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is testing its descending trend line as we speak right now. So it's in a transition, and generally speaking, when you take a long at this point, the last 4 out of 5 attempts to break that descending trend line, Bitcoin has failed. And the only one that was successful was just a small continuation, hit our take profit target, and price pulled right back. So again, a lot of different things here, not giving me a big vote of confidence. So until we break this range, I would say Solana is not really a good tradable coin, unless you're a range-bound trader. And if so, then the lower range is roughly 126.50, and the upper range is approximately 130.5. Right. Once more, I'll post this playout chart on our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. And obviously, if you're new to the channel, I would ask you go ahead and hit the like button. Check out our Discord as well. We got a pretty good group over here. And if you're part of our Discord too, whichever package you have, I always provide our playout charts here, kind of giving you indications of what I'm planning to do with the coins that I'm looking at. I analyze. These inevitably become trade signals. For example, Cardano, that translates into a 21% profit there from the long that we took at about 32.4. Anyways, conversation for another day. Thanks again for your time. We'll look forward to seeing the next one. Have a good one. Take care.